Chapter 11 of the first book of the brother of Jared. An account of the 20th community to begat Messiah, that of Remembrance, and the establishment of Shabuah in the Promised Land. And now, as the brother of Jared beheld these things, it was both bitter and sweet, for he wept aloud to see Messiah suffering. Howbeit, the Messiah did not allow him to feel his more feelings of personal suffering out of compassion for his tender heart. And when he saw the events of the resurrection, he wept for joy, and he rejoiced with all his soul. For before his eyes was the secret and source of all life, and he praised the Holy Great One in heaven, and he knew that the praises of springtime, who were joined with Jonah, gushed forth in joy all the days of the earth. And he praised the Holy Great One that he should give man so great a blessing as salvation. And as the brother of Jared saw the great gulf between the wicked and the righteous, that the blindness of the wicked was just not that they could not see with the eyes of the righteous, but that they could not see with the eyes of all the holy hosts of heaven. And as well, he saw the feelings were as though the Holy Great One had died, which feelings pierced the righteous and all the holy hosts of heaven to their very center, insomuch that they all lost their hope and their will to live. And the earth shook, and the hills mourned, and the wind cried, and the trees wept, and the lights were darkened with the suffering of the righteous. And they were all joined in one, insomuch even all the holy watchers were not there to meet him as he arose. But among the wicked who also heard of the prophecies that he would arise on the third day, so they set guards to watch over his tomb out of knowledge of the prophecy. And they felt no despair at his death, but rejoiced in it, being oblivious to righteousness, and denying the feelings of all the earth around them. And the wicked, in the blindness of their minds, could not comprehend that all the holy watchers were feeling the same as those who walked in righteousness. And it came to pass that the brother of Jared saw that at the time of the tribulation it will be after the same manner, and all the holy watchers will be joined in their hearts to the hearts of the righteous. And all the calamities that befall the wicked in those days of drought and wind and storm, and the shaking of the earth, and fire, and great destruction, and plagues, and with disease, and great misfortune, with all will be the response of the holy watchers on behalf of all the righteous against the wicked. O you wicked, how can you persist and refrain from repentance, seeing the very hills and clouds and wind, and even all the hosts of heaven, the holy watchers, are against you? And the brother of Jared marveled at the greatness of the blindness of evil, and he said, Messiah, when shall the end of wickedness be, and how shall it be accomplished? And it came to pass that the Messiah said to the brother of Jared, Look, for there are 5 high priest communities that yet remain until the wicked are destroyed, and I reign upon the earth with the righteous for 1,000 years. And the last 4 shall rise upon in the land of promise, wherein I am sending you. And the brother of Jared looked, and he saw Messiah when he was young in his 18th year, And Messiah traveled with his companions up to the head of the waters to the brook called Jabbok, which means pouring forth, and wherein a large bend of stream were the ruins of the ancient settlement called Tishbeth, which means recourse, or place where protection is offered. And it was in this dwelling place that Elijah and his community had dwelt, in this settlement called Nazareth of Tishbeth. Notwithstanding, the place had been in ruins for a very long time, and in this place, among the people of the set apart, they dwelt Shalom, the sister of Joseph, and her husband Zabdi, who was inscribed first in the set apart community, and many of the family of Zabdi dwelt there. And it was from Tishbeth he and his men of the place would go for a season each year to fish at Chinnereth. And while they fished, they dwelt in Nazareth, where Joseph and Mary dwelt. And it came to pass, while they were in Tishbeth, the time of Shalom to deliver had come, and she was in travail, and a niece of Mary named Yada, which means something born, a lass, or girl, which name is associated with midwifery, was the midwife. And Mary came to help, as Salome was delayed some years, and was older when she began to bear. And it came to pass that the companies of Messiah wanted to go exploring to the regions of Tishbeth, for they desired not to be near at the birth of a child, but Messiah would not. And they chided him and said, Birthlings are for girls and women. Come, let us go. And he said, The doings of my Father are at hand, and his love is come unto me. And he sat himself down by the door of the dwelling, where the birth was to take place. And he greatly desired to remain for the birth of the child. And it came to pass that the woman marveled that he should remain behind his fellows. And when the child was born, it was in the night, and Messiah had fallen asleep beside the door. And the father was called in to see the child, and he announced his name to be Ben-Risheth, which means a son of thunder. And as he did so, all in the house felt Semyaza draw near, and say in great fear and anger, My kingdom, my kingdom. And the women of the house cried out, for the presence of Semyaza was hard against them. And Messiah awoke upon hearing Semyaza speak in anger, and he heard the cries of the women, and he arose to his feet, and he cast his voice into the window, and he said the word, Elder, which is to say, the Holy Great One is here. And immediately Semyaza shrunk back and was put to flight. And in that moment Yada came out of the door and said, Who is Elder? And Messiah said, It was I. And she said, Master, what are you to do for the name of the child? And Messiah replied, We shall call him John, but he shall be known to the Holy Great One as the Son of Thunder. And thus was born John the Beloved, the Son of Thunder, in the 18th year of Messiah. And it came to pass that the child grew, and Messiah loved him. And when the season of fishing came, he and the child would play together, and their souls were joined together like unto Israel and Benjamin. And after John learned to walk, it was in his year, his second year, it was time for him to be weaned. And he was yet the only child of his parents. Howbeit, in the same year, Salome bore again a son, and his name was called James. And it came to pass that when John was weaned, they were at Nazareth of Chinnereth, and Hannah was there, being full of years, and she was filled with the Holy Spirit. And she prophesied and said, pointing to the child, This one will be a help and a companion to Messiah in Israel, as long as the river flows and the wind blows upon the earth. And her words caused a great wonder in all the hearts of those who heard them. And they said, Shall this child live forever? And it came to pass that John grew before the Holy Great One, and he loved Messiah, and called him Little Father. And his parents saw that he was only content when he was with Messiah. And it came to pass in the 13th year of John, and the 11th year of his little brother James, Messiah asked that these two sons follow him as princes in Israel. And notwithstanding their being so young, their parents consented, and that they should do so. And seeing Messiah was always in the company of so many of his family and relatives. And it came to pass that John was much beloved by Messiah, for he was always continually a comfort to him, he being filled with the love of the Holy Great One in his heart. And because he did not pay heed to the issues of distress and the discord of the day, but he looked only to the needs of Messiah, and he was a comfort to Messiah, because he never doubted nor disrupted his word, or engaged in perplexing discussions. But rather, John looked to the care of Messiah all during his ministry, and he communicated with the women to see that the every need of the Messiah was to be fed, and he would not sleep in the night unless he could discover Messiah to be resting well. And he tended after Messiah like a nursing mother to her child. And he did not require anything of Messiah, but gave only himself continually. And he would not speak of the distresses of each day, but he dwelt upon the delightful things that transpired with healings and the great joys and understanding that came by the teachings of Messiah. And it came to pass that in the 16th year of John, they took Messiah from him to be executed as a criminal. And when he beheld that Messiah was taken into the house of death to be prepared to be killed, he fell to the earth, and his father carried him home. And in his soul John could not bear to live, and he became sick with a fever, and in his heart desired that they should die together. And thus he remained near death with a high fever for 4 days. Now the loving hand of the Holy Great One came upon this lad at these times. And it came to pass that while he lay sick, he had a great vision, and he saw the end of days, when Messiah will be triumphant over all the wicked. And he saw Messiah standing on the right hand of the Holy Great One. And John beheld that even as it were by the voice of thunder, that Messiah would by a mighty hand intervene into the course of the wicked and all the fallen watchers, to restore the earth unto the vision of his Father in creation. And he saw that Messiah would establish the kingdom of his Father upon the earth, and in all these things, and that Messiah would overcome all the wicked with the fallen watchers, and establish peace upon the earth for 1,000 years. And as John beheld these things, the watcher that guards the east came and stood before him, and he said, Look. And John saw In the hand of the Father was a stone tablet, and it was written upon the backside and within and upon it, and it was written the very manner, even the exact tenor of how Messiah would destroy the wicked and bless the righteous. And the writing was hidden from the wicked, and the stone of the tablet was not on a rock of witness for them, and that which was written could not be understood by them, for it was sealed, and could not be known, and only be known to the righteous by the hand of the Holy Great One. And the angel said, One must be found who can perform the task written therein. And John heard the voice that said, Who shall interpret the tablet unto men? For the Great One. And a search was made, the full width of the breadth of heaven, and in all existence. And John cried aloud from the agony of his soul and said, Alas, there will be no one to interpret the book, for my Messiah is killed. And John wept greatly before the angel. And the angel of the east put his hand upon the forehead of John and said, There is one, see? And he pointed to Messiah. And when John awoke, Messiah was standing before him, and his hand was upon his forehead to heal him. And the Messiah said, Fear not, dear one, for I am here. And John sat up and exclaimed, Master, is this heaven? And the Messiah said, Look about you. And John saw that he was home and upon his bed where he had been sick. And he leaped up and said, You have risen. What a joy it is to my life. What a joy it is to me. Will you commence your labors of ministry once again? And the Messiah replied, No, not so, little one. I must go into my Father. But you and all your people in the set-apart community must continue the ministry of the loving kindness of my Father until I come again, and I will go into all things to be forever with you and you with me. And they talked a while, and Messiah said, Now go and tell your brethren that I will see them in Chinnereth on the morrow. And John saw him with the rest of the 12 on many occasions. And Messiah remained upon the earth before men for 40 days to receive the seventh grace before he went unto his Father, and he received all power and for fullness of the glory of the Father. And it came to pass that Messiah fed them bread and fish by the seashore one day, fish feeling friendship and tending to others as a nursing mother. And John said to Messiah, Now that you have arisen, Master, how may I serve you? And the Messiah said, After the same manner as you have during all my walk with men, for I love for you to take care of me. And the rest of the 12 were heard to say that on that day that the Messiah risen, John became a man. And on that day that he entered into the covenant in his 20th year, his hair was white as snow. And it came to pass that after Messiah was gone into his Father, John and his brother James, and James, the brother of Messiah, went to Sukkot. And it was after the feast of Shavuot in that year, which is called Pentecost, when the Holy Ghost came in great abundance to all the people that were in that community. And they dwelt there in Sukkot with James, the brother of Messiah, and these men were there when James, the brother of John, entered into the covenant. And it came to pass that James, the brother of John, went to Jerusalem on a mission for Messiah in his 25th year, and he was taken by the king at the command of the high priest, and then they killed him. And James, the brother of John, was killed in the 27th year of John, and after he was killed, John and James escaped and fled northward to the ruins of Kepsheba. And it came to pass that many of the church who fled the violence of oppression first made their way unto the men of Kepsheba. And the brother of Jared beheld that John continued to care for Messiah after his resurrection in the same manner as he did during the days when Messiah walked in the flesh. And John would still arise in the night to inquire if Messiah was resting well, and he would continually see to every need of Messiah, and not burden him with the perplexing events of the day. And John was childlike in his walk with the Messiah all his days, and he prayed for the loved ones of Messiah, and his heart was tender before him. Now, it was this diligence and great faith that resulted in so many of the loved ones of Messiah successfully escaping the ruins of Kepsheba to find safety and to find comfort there. And it came to pass that in the 50th year of John, James, the brother of the Messiah, was killed by an impostor who desired to be known as the one numbered among the 12 princes that followed with Messiah. And because of this rebelliousness increased. And it was expedient that the people of the Messiah flee unto Kepsheba, and the people with the church were mild in their spirit and unwilling to do violence. And they began to disperse out of Jerusalem, and many of the most peaceable ones came to Kepsheba, and the place grew and prospered, even to exceed the original city that was there, and their encampment spread unto the north side, unto a lake of water, and the settlement was where 2 rivers came together, and an hour and 1/2 walk to the west was the city of the Gentiles, which they called Antioch. And the people of this city began to be afraid of the large gathering of the people that they called Nazarenes. And it came to pass that the impostor who killed James often traveled to the city of Antioch, and he by deceit and subtlety discovered who was inscribed first among them from one of the 12 in that place, and it was John, he being one of the high priests after the order of Melchizedek. And this impostor discovered John unto the Kittim. Now the overseer of Antioch desired to keep peace with the Kittim, and his mind was troubled by the gathering at Kepsheba, for the Gentiles were hard against of the rebellions, and the people of the land were in want. But the people of the church had the storehouse of the Holy Great Room, and they prospered. And it came to pass that when the Kittim heard who was inscribed first, they came and took John. Now understand that the people of the church who remained in Jerusalem were exposed to much conflict, and they saw the deaths of many, and had persecutions, and some had fled to Shipbeth, and to Bethor, and others to Yabes. But the most of them went to Kepsheba, where John was, and some of the 12 princes that followed with him. And it came to pass that when they took John, the people grieved, and many of them followed after those who took him, and they lifted their homes to follow, and there was a body of them to exceed 2,800, and they all gathered about the house of the overseer in Antioch. And the overseer greatly feared their numbers, notwithstanding they were not armed. And he sent a man out to see them. And the man said, Select ones among yourselves, and send them into the overseer, that you may make your desires known unto him. And they sent 3 elders to meet with him. And he agreed not to kill John, but he must needs arrest him, for it was the command of the kitten. And should the people demand his release, the armies of the kitten would sweep down upon them all, even those who dwelt at Antioch. And he agreed also to no more pay heed to the impostor. Now, at this time, John had the Urim and Thummim, and the stone tablets, and many writings. And when he took them, it fell to the lot of James to see to their care and safety. And it came to pass that the people returned home, and James inquired with the Urim as to how they should proceed. And the Lord revealed unto them that he would lead them forth to a place of safety. And he laid it to the north in the mountains, where that they were beyond some bodies of water. And the Lord brought them comfort to know that the life of John was in his hands, and he would yet perform a great work for him. And it came to pass that in the night all but few departed, and in the morning the place was empty. And an old woman called Navalah, which means to prepare a habitation, her and her husband and her family remained upon the shores of the lake, and they remained behind, so they could receive any who should flee Jerusalem, to guide them in the way. And it came to pass that the brother of Jared saw the land of Badad, which means to be utterly solitary, and it is called Patmos by the kitten. And his fathers had gone there in the days of old to hunt, but now, since the flood, it was become surrounded by the sea. But here they put John, and it was used as a prison, a place of exile by the kitten. And on the east shore was a small dwelling for guards of the kitten, to guard the place, to receive provisions. And they did not have to guard the west side, for the wind of the rocks prevented rescue by ship on that side. And it came to pass that John was alone for many years upon the land of Badad. And these solitary circumstances could not prevent him from tenderly caring for the needs of Messiah. And it came to pass that John lived in a cave in the east of a mountain, and he would not eat the provisions of the kitten, and the guards kept them for themselves. And not far down from the home of John was a spring of water, and he was now in his 65th year. And it came to pass in those days, the husband of Navalah was brought to be captive with John, notwithstanding he being full of years. And 2 young men were made prisoners with him. Now, the food that was sent by the kitten was unclean for the people of the church, and the guards grew accustomed to keeping it for themselves. And it was the husband of Navalah that came. He would not eat the unclean food, For he said he would be ashamed before the Holy Great One of Israel. And John had lived on the flesh and milk of wild goats and the herbs of the land, and he had written great things upon their skins. And when his man would not eat, after a few years he died in the lair of John. And it was in the 70th year of John. And when the old man died, the Kittim were about to cast him into the sea. And when John approached and asked that his body be sent to his people to be buried as their custom required it of them, that he be laid to rest in a certain way, and the guards feared to not grant him this request, lest he should discover them to their overseer for having kept all the provisions for themselves. And it came to pass that John asked for the wrapping preparations to prepare the body, and when he had received them, he concealed all his writings inside the wrappings, and he wrapped it counterclockwise to cause Navala to unwrap the clothes in order to wrap them correctly. And in this way she discovered what he had written inside. And it was in this way that the great prophecies of John concerning the tribulations of the last days were sent out unto the people of the church. And it was by the selfless act of this woman, Nevala, and her family, that John is, in the end of days, able to continue to tenderly nourish Messiah, insomuch that he can accomplish his task in allowing the wicked to be subdued. For these writings are the great worth to Messiah, for by them the people of the church in the days of tribulation may know and be instructed as to how to proceed, and that which is written therein are the visions of John, and that he, as a lad when Messiah was in the tomb, and the great things he saw, shall be made bare and become clear, even to the wicked in the last days. And the reward of those whose thus assist to minister to the needs of Messiah shall be great at that last day. And the writings of John, are they not disclosing the very manner in which the people of the church may assist Messiah in overcoming the wicked in the end times? And this that Messiah can establish righteousness upon the earth for a multitude of days. Now the altar of John, where he intervened to establish help for Messiah, was at his spring of water, and it was a large flat rock embedded in the mountainside, with a crack running down from the top to the north side to the middle, and the water dripped out of the crack continually, and it would fill up a large pot overnight. And when John stood before his altar, he stood in the small pool formed by the water, and he faced west. And the altar of John was called the Rock of Badad by the people of the church, after they reviewed the writings of John. And the Lord will meet often with John at the Rock of Badad. And had the midwives that attended his birth been there, they would have plainly seen why Semyaza had cried out, my kingdom, for John at the Rock of Badad shook the very foundations of the kingdom of Semyaza, and in the end his revelations and what he established there will bring the end of it, and prove the entire overflow and destruction of the dominion of Semyaza by the hand of Messiah. And the brother of Jared saw that upon the rock of Badad, out of which flowed pure water, was established understanding that will cause Messiah to be tenderly helped and watched after to bring about his triumphant second coming. And it came to pass that the brother of Jared saw that the rock of Badad would remain all the days of the earth, and it would be the element of righteousness during tribulation times. And the righteous will use it as a rock of witness, that Semyaza and all who follow him will be in the end utterly alone and solitary and cast off from all the element of righteousness, which is the second death. And John was a brother to the thunder, being known to the Holy Great One as Ben Rishah. And Messiah named him, and John named Messiah Lord of Lords, and established that Messiah should in the end be fully triumphant in all his missions and tasks with man for his Father. And it came to pass, according to the prophecy received by James, that John performed a great work for Messiah. And in his 72nd year, John was standing before the rock of Badad, and he was affirming Shabuah, and one of the young men was sounding the trump of assembly, when a storm arose, and it swept over the land of Badad, and the waves of the sea cast themselves upon the shore heavily, and the thunder shook the earth. And when the storm was past, John was gone. And the trumpeter said he could see his long white hair shining with the flashes of lightning. And when he could not be found, the Kittim searched for him, but he was not there. And the young men who were prisoners there said that the thunder took him. But the guards laughed and said, "No, surely he has been swept out into the sea." And the brother of Jared asked the Lord, how was it so that the thunder could take him? And the Lord said that John was translated like unto Enoch of old. And as Enoch went into the Eden to live there, even so was John translated into the thunder. For the thunder feels that the Lord our Messiah will have his way. And it announces that the desires of the heart of Messiah are to be assured. And because of Shabuah, thunder will be defined this way all the days of the earth, and all the wicked of the ages are helpless to stand against the sound of it. And Semyaza and the kings of the earth tremble at the voice of the thunders. And as men go to the gates of Eden, and all upon Enoch to speak with them, even so can holy men go to the thunder and call for John to meet with them. For he is brother to the thunder, and he lives in the thunder to this day. But only those who are seeing after the care of Messiah, as does John, can know him there. And Messiah gave him power to reveal himself to any who could accomplish this repentance, and to any who love Messiah as John did, and who exercised faith in him in Shabuah. And in the final days of the kingdom of Semyaza, and during the great forsaking and the gathering, there will be many who know and converse with John the Beloved, and who will speak with Bermesheth in the midst of the thunder. And it shall even be as one man speaks with another. Is not John a companion to Messiah to nourish him? As long as the rivers flow and the wind blows upon the earth, behold, O man, the voice of the thunders, for by them the rivers flow, and the wind blows. And it came to pass that after these things the Lord left off speaking with the brother of Jared upon the mountain, at the altar by the sea wherein they were building their ships. And the Lord said to him, with the remaining 4 high priest communities, he would be revealed to him by his arrival at the promised land. And he said that these last 4 high priest communities were able to dwell upon the land of promise according to the will of the Lord. It came to pass that when the brother of Jared and Tephorah his rib returned unto the encampment of the people from the altar of the Lord, and where the people beheld their radiance and the light of the stones, that they shrank back from before them. And they went into their lair and rested for a few days, and the people did not durst even speak to them. But Shalat, the wife of their son, tended unto them. And after 4 days their children and their grandchildren drew near unto them. Now, during these days, the brother of Jared had rehearsed all his visions of the Lord to his rib, Tephorah, and she was astonished. And the Lord spoke to her with instructions as to how to protect her and her husband, as he was in many ways childlike, and he could inadvertently disclose that which the Lord forbid. And she could see before her eyes the grace that had come to her husband. For from his youth he had always walked with the holy watchers, and now he was walking before the people in the innocence of his heart, and standing in the presence of the Lord had magnified these things. Wherefore Tephorah was determined to watch over his husband in his tenderness of heart. And it came to pass that she bestowed the song of the dance upon Shalat before the eyes of all the people, which name by interpretation means the one who dances softly. For Tephorah could see that the sacred song with its dance could not remain before those who did not cross the great deep, and Shalat was the wife of Nakash, the one who was comforted by the song of the dance at his birth in the land of Shinar. Now these things were done in the 5th month of the 6th year, in the week of years. And the people were in the midst of the harvest, and all things were done in preparation for the sabbatical year. But one who was born during the course of their travels, who was prominent among men, had determined in his heart that upon the departure of the brother of Jared, the sabbatical year was an anniversary incumbent upon the people, and that it would no longer be observed. Thus, we see how quickly the holy things of righteousness are abandoned by those who do not choose to love and follow after the pleasant things of repentance. And Tephorah could see that there would arise contentions should the righteous remain in this place that they called Surmak. And she was content to thrust their lives into the hands of the Lord upon the waters of the great deep. And it came to pass that the people busily prepared for their journey, and the brother of Jared prepared other empty tablets of stone, so that he could write upon them his visions that were before his eyes with the Lord on the mount. And he thought to do so while crossing the great deep, insomuch that these things could be kept, for they will be a very great worth to the righteous in some future day. But the people of his day could only know a small part of which what is written, for the Lord commanded him that the way in which he was begotten should not become before the people until he had manifested himself in the flesh upon the earth. Now, the circumstances of the people were according to this manner. As the time of their departure drew near, the one who was born in the wilderness among them, and the one who was prominent, he was called Ziklag, which by interpretation means to encircle or to bind up. And this man could see that the departure of the brother of Jared was soon at hand, and he began to proclaim that all the regions round about belonged to him, and that Sormac was his country, for it was he who had discovered it, and as he was sent ahead to spy out the land in their travels, and he denied that they were being led by the hand of the Holy Great One. And Ziklag was a mighty hunter, and he carried his weapons about him whithersoever he went. And he declared that all the people would be blessed by him, as he would allow them to dwell upon the land, and thus would preside over all the affairs of the people. And he promised to increase their abundance, and he used blue stones as their substance of wealth. And it came to pass that during these times the righteous withdrew from among the people, and they prepared in earnest for their departure. And it came to pass that all the sacred things that were last, that were taken on the ships, and into each ship was placed 2 of the stones of the altar for light. And on the 4th day, the 1st month of the 7th year, in the 6th week of years, they entrusted their lives into the hands of the Holy Great One, and they blessed Sarael, and did put forth into the sea. And the women of Sormac wept, for they wished to also go forth with them. And the men of Sormac were ever after inclined toward the love of war, and all of their women suffered for the loss of their children. And it came to pass that after they sailed forth, the first 4 days were mild, and the breezes blew forth toward the promised land. And there arose a great calm upon the sea, and they gathered, and the 8 ships together to speak with one another, and they discovered they were all having difficulty steering the ships, and they found that they must needs and alter the steering of the ships. And it was determined that it must be accomplished during this great calm, and the men would enter the water with each ship to perform the task of altering the steering. And when they were about to begin the last one, a great storm burst forth upon them, and the men hastened to set themselves to get out of the water, to make ready for the storm. And the last ship was abandoned and left adrift in the vast empty sea, and it was the ship of Shema and her family, and they had remained on the ship with the brother of Jared and Tephora. And it came to pass in the morning, the brother of Jared was seen to be of sad countenance, and Shema said, How is it? How is it with you, master? And the brother of Jared replied, that their misfortune was great, as the stones of the altar were lost upon the ship. And she replied, Not so, for I have them. See? And she opened up a bag in her hand, and he could behold them glowing. And the brother of Jared rejoiced. And they went forth with the 4 stones of the altar lighting up their way. And it came to pass that after many days another great calm came upon the sea. And the brother of Jared opened up the sacred things to once again view them, and to think upon them. And behold, they were not wrapped as he had left them. And he had discovered that 2 of the tablets of Seth had been stolen. And he had seen that they had been removed from among the tablets. And they were the family tablet and the repentance tablet, the very 2 tablets which Tephora and Shema had so diligently taught to all the children of the people. And they comforted the brother of Jared, and they said, We know them by heart. And it came to pass that during the calm, these women assisted him in restoring the tablets, and he made more in their place. And thus we see that these 2 tablets were restored to the righteous, but those who remain behind will now be accountable to the Holy Great One to live by the things written therein. And the brother of Jared had many records of Shem, and he had his horn of sounding for Shabuah, and he had the tablet of Shabuah, which is called the language tablet, and the tablets of Eldad, and he had the tablet of the holy city, written by Enoch, from which the prophet either gained his knowledge concerning the New Jerusalem, and he had the proclamation tablet written by Shem. But Shem retained a copy of the language tablet and the water tablet, which tablet came to the promised land, not by the brother of Jared, but by the hand of those who escaped from Keshippa northward in the days of Ben-Shiphat. And these tablets and their records Shem buried, where Goker Haram the first was led to discover them. And the brother of Jared, he had the Urim and Thummim, and many other tablets, written by the finger of God. And thus were the records preserved before the Lord for the people of the promised land. And they continued their journey for many days. And when the seas were calm, the brother of Jared would write upon the tablets. As they traveled, one day land was sighted, and they cast their eyes upon the shore to find a gentle place to land. And after 2 days they espied an open inlet, and they safely landed amidst the large rocks of the shore. And it was on the 15th day of the 20th month of the 7th year in the 6th week of years. And the people rejoiced and bowed themselves in prayer and thanked the Lord for their lives and his goodness to them. Now 2 children had been born just before they departed to travel upon the waves of the sea, one by the daughter of Shema and one by the daughter of Shelah. And these 2 children had never before seen dry land, and were afraid to move upon it. And their mother stayed with them upon the ships for a few days, until these children began to be willing to sally forth to explore the promised land. But they were ever after called by their grandfather Benjamin, which that is to say, children of the sea. And it came to pass that there remained unto them provisions for their journey, and they kept them for their space of a time. And the people prepared layers and made them the land ready to plant food according to their need. And the brother of Jared and Tephora made ready to proclaim for the first time the covenants of Shabuah in the promised land. And Shalat prepared the women of the dance. Now the trump of Shem had been handed down to the brother of Jared at the time that the 12 years upon the Mount Patah, and it was the most sacred possession. And all of the element of righteousness he received, notwithstanding the great worth that which was written. And now it came to pass that the whole face of the land lay before him, and it was exceeding rich with life and pure water, and grew food in abundance. And the thought of affirming Shabuah upon the land caused the mountains and the hills to rejoice. And one morning, in the early hours, as the brother of Jared lay sleeping in the open by the sea, he had a vision from the Lord, and the sunrise over the mountain. And it came to him as he was pondering the greatness and the sweetness of the promised land. And he saw Messiah and all the hosts of heaven declaring Shabuah upon all the land, and in the midst of it the watcher who guards the north approached him and said, What is it are you preparing to do? And the brother of Jared said, To sound the trump of summons for Shabuah. And the angel said, You know not that this thing you do this day must endure throughout all the generations of the earth. And the brother of Jared said, How is it so, my lord? And the angel said, Look. And the brother of Jared looked, and behold, all the children who lived upon the promised land in all that day, and they were few in number, and they were widely scattered upon the face of the land. And he saw that they knew not the things of God, and were not taught, and they were violent and superstitious in their natures. And the angel said, It is the desire of the God of Shabuah that these things do not come to dominate the land of promise. And the angel of the north, which is called Nahakis, which means the throne of the strong one, said, Look again. And the brother of Jared saw a man with sons and daughters come out of Jerusalem to escape the controversy of Josiah. And his 2 older sons had perversity of heart. And the next son was holy, but his younger brother was subject to pride. And he brought a similitude of the law of Aaron with him, and he built a temple like unto Solomon, and he established to be a king. And the knowledge of it frightened the brother of Jared, for he knew the great wickedness. He knew the great wickedness of this, and that it had been wrought by these things in the land of his father. And the watcher said, Look again. And the brother of Jared saw many others who had escaped from the destruction of Israel, and most of them were holy, but some could bring evils to the promised land. And the brother of Jared said to the angel, What is it? And what is it that I should do? And the angel said, Establish Shabuah upon the land with a mighty hand. And the brother of Jared went straight away and told Jephthah all of the vision. And she sat preparing their morning food, and she declared her delight to safeguard the place with Shabuah. And it came to pass that Tephorah and Shelah prepared the women of the dance with all diligence during the 7 weeks of the trump of summons. And it came to pass that on the proper day, in the first year of the 7th week of years, in the 34th Jubilee, the brother of Jared sounded the trump of assembly for all the holy watchers of the promised land, and he called them all by name and assembled them unto the God of Shabuah. And the song of Eve and her dance and the joining she danced in Eden were seen in the land of promise, and all the holy watchers rejoiced, and they sang songs and great exclamations, and the rocks of witness stood listening. And it came to pass that man of God, that man of God, the brother of Jared, approached the altar, and he, using bread as the element of righteousness, called forth and established that Shabuah will be the religion of the promised land, and the bread of life feels that Messiah is and through all things to give life to all things, and that such life is eternal. And Sephora and the women of the dance rose up in the dance 7 times with the bread as the element of righteousness, to declare that the great joy of life that comes from Messiah being in and through all things comes by the love of repentance that brings us back into the loving kindness of our Father in heaven. And because of his prayers that day, all those who are native to the land of promise, and all who also embrace righteousness, shall forever, as long as the earth shall stand, worship the God who is in and through all the holy watchers, and all other religions shall fail and dwindle away in the midst of the earth, and the law of Aaron shall never have a seat upon the land. And the brother of Jared vowed a vow with all the holy watchers, joining in with him, that proclaimed that when the inhabitants of this land from north to south and east to west do not abide in Shabuah, that they become ripe in iniquity, that they shall be swept off the land, and those who perform sorcery and evils and secret combinations, and thus do the unpardonable sin, shall be cast off the land like the abominable thing, and the mystery of their passing shall never be known. And it came to pass that the holy watchers rejoiced and exclaimed all together, we shall do ever wit of things and all these things forever. And thus the land was blessed on behalf of the righteousness, but cursed for all the wicked, when they become fully right in iniquity. And in these things we can see that the brother of Jared, yea, even the evil in those days, sent here by the hand of the Holy Great One, and his prayers, and the bread, and the trump of Shem, made it to the land of promise.